morning, everybody. Thank you very, very much for joining us on what is hopefully a lovely Thursday evening for all of you. My name is Soumya. I represent the team at Pascare. What a year 2023 is turning out to be, especially when we all started with thinking that 2022 has been a year where everything got reset back into normalcy. We started the year with almost a lot of organizations rolling back their employees to the office, and people coming back full swing. I think after a long time, a lot of people took their vacation. So all of us HRs were able to even implement our vacation policies, leave policies, and all of that again full swing. And people were finding some semblance of, getting the hang of, a hybrid work model, people coming back into the office, and a whole lot of other experiments in the workforce. Just as the year is winding down, and of course, the number one conversation that happened towards the beginning of the year was, the great resignation. This was a job seekers market. We were having conversations about how people with a 7 lakh CTC were landing a 22 lakh CTC. Retention became the biggest conversation. And I think by and large, the extreme focus on employee experience has actually probably made better differences in our own organizations. The fact that we were working so hard to retain our employees, I think in some way has actually changed the culture of our own organizations and actually made employee practices a lot better. But the turn of the third quarter onwards, we all know that there's by and large, a huge slowdown in the world economy. We are foreseeing an upcoming recession. And as we speak, I am sure by what the markets are already telling from the last 2 days, and parallelly with what is already happening in the parliament today, the masks are back. There's conversation about COVID again. We might have to actually deal with, along with the recessionary concerns we were already dealing with, we might actually be looking at pandemic worries again. So it is turning out to be a juggernaut of a fourth quarter for 2022. Which means all of us will have, because we work with organizations which take care of a huge number of people on the other side, we all will have to probably put back our thinking hats and again have to, it'll be a state of flux. It already looks like that quarter one of 2023 is going to be a state of flux. So I think with so much going on, I think it was right that, we curated this panel of incredibly dynamic HR professionals with whom we would like to actually explore what 2023 is actually looking like. So I would like to extend a very, very warm welcome to Sheetal Sharma, Senior Manager of Total Rewards at R1 RCM. I hope I'm saying that right. So Rupee Rastogi, who is the Global Total Rewards Lead at All Cargo Group, and Jatin Kumar, who is, I'm also partly very grateful, is joining us all the way from Japan, Senior HR Generalist at Mercury. Today, we will actually be exploring, just like what we spoke about, the entire spectrum of the benefits spectrum, all the way leading from talent management, retention practices, and of course, a little bit about the skills we all need to, hold in order to be able to, face what is coming ahead of us. So with that in line, I think I would like to pose my very first question. And this question, I would be grateful if, we could have an answer from everybody who's our panelists. And Sheetal, I will start with you. What do you foresee are the challenges for 2023?
Good evening, everyone. And first of all, thank you, Soumya, and thank you to Pascare for providing us the opportunity to share our views on this platform. And I'm sure the questions we would get from audience will provide us as well a new perspective. So talking about the challenges I see for the organizations in 2023, the biggest challenge, according to me, will be flexibility, agility, and resilience. So there is so much of dynamism in the environment, so much of legislative changes. COVID has brought in a complete new set of workforce, which is hybrid. And with the aspirations of Gen Z, the organizations need to be adaptive and agile and flexible altogether. Organizations spend every year millions of rupees in providing best of compensation and benefits to their employees. But still, the attrition is very high. Why? So it is largely because we have not been able to meet the aspirations of the new workforce, which require continual challenges and motivations to work. Most of the organizations have employees in fixed roles, wherein they are working in fixed roles with a defined or traditional job architecture and headcount planning. What is the need of the hour is to move them from fixed roles to skill-based roles, wherein employees are able to use their skills and add value to the organization. So that will provide motivation to employees and continual challenges as well. So in the current scenario, as an HR, I may get a project once in a year, and the second year or third year may be a business as usual for me, which becomes monotonous. So that is one part. For organizations which have routine job or businesses which have routine job or routine tasks, according to me, they should look into automating those tasks and reskilling or upskilling those workforce so that whatever redundancy comes out of automating those tasks, that redundancy does not impact the employment of the workforce and the workforce can be used somewhere else. And for that, the organization may have to redesign the work overall. So that's, according to me, are the biggest challenges.
Perfect. Shizal, I think you've kicked us off in the right direction. So, Rupee, I will park this question to you, considering that you can help us build on what Sheetal is speaking about, primarily with regards to the fact that you run you sit at the helm of an organization that takes care of a combination of workforce, not just people who are in the office, but also a huge fleet on the street. So, we would like your inputs about what you're foreseeing as challenges for 2023.
Sure. Thank you, Soumya. Thank you for inviting me, Sayali, Soumya, and the entire PASCAR team. I'm glad to be here this evening. So building on what Sheetal said, one of the few of the biggest challenges which we'll foresee in 2023 is getting people back into the office. That is one challenge which we are facing as a logistics industry. People are used to working from home, working from a hybrid environment during the pandemic. But in our industry, we need people to be there in the office, at the site, on-site locations, on the docks, delivering a mile-to-mile delivery back to the homes. So how do we engage that workforce? How do we encourage them to come back to office? That is one of the biggest challenges which we are facing. The second challenge which we are facing is, now that we do have this hybrid workforce, how do we inculcate the company culture in them? When someone is in the office, we have certain organizational values which percolate through the office environment. But when we have the workforce spread all through the world, how do we ensure that these values and the company culture is kept intact? And the third thing which we are facing is, even though there is a downturn in the technology talent hiring, and it's not as bad as it was earlier this year, people are not getting multiple offers, still AI, machine learning, data analytics, these are hot skills in the market. And how we will hire and retain this talent is going to be the biggest challenge in the coming year.
Perfect. Thanks, Rupee. Jatin, I will of course come to you. From a global perspective, what do you think the challenges are looking like?
Yeah, like honestly, both Sheetal and Surabhi have covered all the points. But let me also share, more about where I'm coming from and what are the things we are looking at a global perspective. So first of all, like, I'm working in a Japanese company which is called Mercury. It's the first tech unicorn in Japan. And we are a C2C e-commerce, in the business. We have just started like a tech center in India now. It's been like 6 to 8 months. We have been building our team in India. And like, as Sheetal mentioned, like, again, looking at the larger economic environment in Japan, as well as like all over the world, we haven't been expanding our team so much. And of course, there has been attrition. So like a way to reskill those workforce in a way that they're able to take up like additional projects, additional responsibilities will definitely be one challenge for us. At the same time as, like Surbhi mentioned, so we have been following like a hybrid work style in India, whereas in Japan, we follow something called your choice. So people can work from home, they can come to the office whenever they feel like. But during this course, like there's a problem of building relationships. Also, there's a problem of diversity and inclusion. For example, like some managers might prefer people who would be coming to office. Some managers might be preferring people who are working from home. So how do we cut that bias is another thing that will be facing this challenge in the next year. So I think, yeah, overall, I agree to both of you. And this is something similar we'll be facing this next year as well. Yeah.
And from there, I'll actually ask a follow-up question. And this is a question I will, of course, pass it back on to the rest of our panelists, because you mentioned that you are, just now starting a center in India, and you're just expanding in the Indian, in the Indian setup. And there is complexity in terms of hiring. Then I will probably ask you what goes into the hiring of good talent in the current market. Also, what, according to you, changes a talent experience?
Right. I think, yeah, like Bangalore market, when we entered, it was crazy. So like, we started off with hiring senior members because initially we wanted, like senior people in the team who could support the organization and we could build up further. And hiring them was like, such a challenge. Ask me about it. We were giving like a lot of offers. Our offer to acceptance rate was around 30–40%. And yeah, like that was a big challenge for us. But I think over the time we realized like there were two main issues. One was like we were not very well known to the people in India, like the tech community in India. So we started engaging more with them. We started hosting some tech events in our company, sponsoring those tech events, having a more personal touch when it comes to, candidate experience. So those definitely helped us in improving those offer acceptance rate. And I think, yeah, like for us, it was like more, giving like personal touch to the candidates, which worked for our recruitment. I hope that answers your question.
I'm sure the topic is incredibly expansive. So, we'll take what you have started with, and I will actually immediately come to Sheetal on this. Sheetal, would you like to expand on what we are doing in order to focus more and more on employee experience? Because I think organizations have now come to a realization that employee experience is directly linked to employee retention ratio. And the ability to replace a candidate is a lot more expensive proposition than being able to just retain an employee. So, because there is loss of, there is so many things, loss of business continuity, you have to realign somebody into a brand new team. There are sensitive issues, cultural issues. There is so much that goes on. So there is far more in a financial term, there is more buck for value in terms of actually holding on to a candidate rather than, having to replace a candidate. And I think this sentence will resonate with almost all of our participants, because 96% of the participants who are attending today's session are from the HR community. 4% of them are finance professionals. So my people are actually in the 4%. So it's probably a good thing that, I could have this conversation with HR professionals, because you deal with a lot more with people issues than we do. It also allows us to create perspectives, because for me, it's about, bringing the right talent in so that we could run these numbers, but then you people actually front the entire proposal. That's the reason I'm being tasked with asking the questions. Okay, Sheetal, I'll probably require your inputs.
Sure, Soumya. So employee touch points should be identified at various stages of employee life cycle. And that starts right from the recruitment stage. One, there are many things involved during the recruitment stage itself, whether the employee value proposition during the recruitment stage is good enough to attract the candidate before he becomes or she becomes an employee. Second, whether there has been enough employer branding which has been done or which is available. Then the onboarding experience, initial training, hand-holding of the employee for every single thing, and proper transition from training to an operation or a revenue generating phase, or even if the person is being hired in support functions, whether that handover has been done, transition has been done properly or not. So there are multiple things which are involved, and it may need some automation as well, and whether that is working seamlessly or not. It could be as small as a thing as when you are filling up a job application form in Workday. It's a very simple thing. When you're filling up a job application form in Workday, it gives you two options. Either you fill the entire form yourself or let it extract it from the resume you upload. I have seen at places, and I have shared that feedback with my own organization while I was testing that module, that even after extracting things from the resume, the job application module could not read the resume properly. And the employee or the candidate, as a candidate, I had to fill it again as part of the testing of that module. So everything adds to the experience. Then whether the policies are well defined or not, whether they are communicated well to the employees or to a new hire, because within first 30 to 90 days, the new hire forms a notion of staying with the company or not. So these are some of the things. And when the employee settles down in the organization, whether that career pathing and is available or not, even if the employee is doing, is somebody looking at it that if employee is doing a routine job year and year, is there another way? If we cannot give promotion to the employee, can we move him or her to a different domain to keep that employee engaged and to upskill the employee? So there are many things which goes in parallel as part of employee touch points.
Perfect. Thanks, Sheetal.
Yeah.
Rupee, I think I will have to turn this question to you in terms of how do you then manage the onboarding? I'm sure the onboarding experience of your tech department is a lot different from the onboarding experience of your fleet on the street and operations department largely. How do you then manage? Is there a common vein in which you manage candidate experience? And what are you specifically looking for now in the downturn of events that we're having, where there is so much layoff in tech? Are you seeing a downsizing of tech force and actually an upsizing of the operations workforce? Because I know that your organization is actually growing. We saw the numbers. So considering that, I am sure this is a challenge you're already looking at.
So we have been really fortunate when it comes to the logistics industry in the past 2 years. With many industries are facing a downturn with the pandemic and post-pandemic. But logistics industries have grown because we want everything online to be delivered to our homes, right? So we are not really looking at cutting down of our workforce, whether in tech or people on ground. So which is the biggest positive. We have seen 91% revenue increase in the past year, which is astounding, even as per logistics standards. Even for the tech, because logistics industry per se is a very traditional industry. So now we're looking at, because user experience, employee experience has to be very friendly. We are looking at tech people to help us with the entire end-to-end delivery, as well as making sure that the user experience is seamless. So we are looking at hiring more tech talent, and we are looking at hiring talent in the end mile delivery as well. So we're not looking at downturn over there. When it comes to the employee experience, I think a lot of the employee experience also depends on the manager. And nowadays, whether it is the young talent which is coming in, the Gen Zs, or the people who have been in the workforce for a while, they're looking at their managers being empathetic towards them. The entire humanity has gone through a very difficult time in the past 2 years. And you're looking at managers who are not typical 9-to-5 bosses. They are people who actually care for you, who are invested in your well-being and look at your career growth as well as personal growth. So the entire employee experience also depends on your manager. The second thing is that I feel that now people are not looking just at hefty pay packages. People are looking for flexible work arrangements. People are looking to spend time with their families, a work-life balance. So any organization which can provide that flexibility, care, well-being will end up retaining their talent and giving a great employee experience.
Perfect. Thanks, Rupee. I think I have an announcement to make to all the people who have joined into this webinar. If you have any questions for our panelists, I request you to please put it up in the Q&A section. We will be getting to the questions at the end of our conversation. But if there is anything that is incredibly relevant that could immediately be, rolled back into our panelist, I will immediately ask that. I think Vedavyasa of Paybooks has asked a question, which I think is quite relevant in terms of this particular topic we were talking about right now. Candidates at the moment are rejecting offers in the end moment, just before 3 or 4 days, just before their joining dates. I think this is a chronic problem. Everybody has dealt with it for a long time. Is there a way for that candidate recovery? Because first of all, so much investment in terms of time and effort has gone into finding the right candidate, ensuring that all the rounds of interviews happen. And in the end moment, they want to not join us. How do you tackle a challenge like this? I would invite any one of you to actually take this up.
Yeah, I think I will take this up because, this question is really like connected with my, current situation and, like how we are facing in Mercury, India. So yeah, like not only like candidates dropping the offer 3-4 days before joining date, but also like they're not turning up on the joining date. And this has been like really, unfortunate, and especially it's not just the recruitment team, right? But all the stakeholders involved in onboarding, whether it's the L&D team or whether it's the engineering team, whether they're mentors or managers, they have like already set the plans for the new joiner. So I think like we had these issues like a lot before. And one thing which we tried to change is like to have like a very frank or very candid conversations with the candidates. And, even if, for example, like 2 weeks or 3 weeks down the line, we ask them like, how is the situation? Do you want to join us? Based on all the hearings you had with the managers, based on your current number of offers you're holding. And if they are in doubt, we try to have like candid conversations with them to explain them like, oh, this might be a better opportunity for you. Or okay, like this might be a better opportunity for you. Or we might be the best opportunity for you. So at least that prevents our efforts down the line when we are onboarding them. So yeah, one tip is like having those candid conversations with the candidate. Just not try to sell your brand as much as possible.
Perfect. Would Sheetal or Surabhi like to add to this?
I would like to add to this. Jatin has mentioned it very well. From rewards perspective, one thing that can be seen is the industry where you're operating as an HR professional and how the competition is in the industry. Keeping a track of the competitors or comparators, and whether on compensation and benefit practices, whether your organization is leading the market or at par with the market or behind the market, which matters a lot. And that's where the candidate gets poached at the last moment. Having said that, it will always remain. So what is the plan B for that? As I have said earlier, most of us are operating in fixed roles that uses certain type of skills. So as a plan B to this, focus should be also on the organic growth, reskilling or upskilling people to move to those roles to cater to this problem.
Right.
Perfect. Thanks, Sheetal.
Yep.
I will take one more question, but I think I will take the ownership of answering this question. Shika Sharma has asked, how is moonlighting considered in the industry by tech leaders? Last webinar, Shika, we had the privilege of having 3 CHROs of 3 different unicorns and one of the largest real estate firms in the country attend our panel. And we actually discussed half an hour regarding moonlighting. The general consensus seems to be at the moment, they're not penalizing anybody, provided it is communicated to the organization. We all understand that employment contracts are for a particular period. As long as you have kept your, your own organization informed, that you have another paralleling employment. Also, we are very aware that a lot of organizations went on a spree of letting employees go. Having attended that conversation, we got further context that the only employees who were let go were people who were using office resources. Like if IBM has given you the laptop and you're using IBM laptop to actually write code for some other company with which you're moonlighting, you're technically misusing company's property. None of us want to actually be in a situation like that. Similarly, if you have logged in and said you are present for the day, and instead of doing your required work that your managers have delegated to you, if somebody figured out a way that you were using that time to actually get fully paid, you can take the day off and do some other work. You're well within your right as an employee. But the idea of misuse comes into play when these parameters. Otherwise, everyone, I think the largest, even we ran a poll on this. I'm like right now you're getting polls in this conversation. We were running polls in that conversation, and 65% of the employees, or rather, even that conversation was a similar mix. More than 90% of the respondents were from HR, and none of them found it unethical as long as you are not breaking any of your employment contract rules. Because again, it goes back to the HR Act of India. Okay, Shika, I hope I have answered your question regarding that. And for anyone who has further questions, please do feel free to leave those questions. And if you would like to see any of our previous conversations, I think the videos are available on YouTube, or I think they will cut and make links and put it up on YouTube. The same thing goes to this conversation also. Also, if there is any particular question you would like any of our particular panelists to answer to you, while you leave your questions, request you to please leave your email addresses. Our panelists will write back to you. Like, for example, if there is a specific question regarding logistics and it's sensitive, please leave your email address and ensure that you mention it there, that I do not ask it on an open panel, and the panelist will respond to you. Okay. Thank you. So let's move to the next question. And Jatin, because you actually spoke about that, I will actually come to you first on this question. How can the retention of employees be improved and boosted? I think this question I am parking to you first, because while you were speaking, we have got 6 questions regarding retention.
Okay. Yeah, I think
Sheetal, and you having started this
Yep.
conversation, I think that's the right thing to do, because everyone is talking about how to prevent them from ghosting or improve candidate experience or how to retain. Moonlighting is also a reason for people to be leaving. So I think it's, since all those questions came up when you were talking, I'm putting it to you first.
Right. So Soumya, this question is for me, right? Like, should I go ahead and answer? Okay. Right. So yeah, like just to let you know, so like I started my career as a tech recruiter and then moved on to the learning and development space. And from there, I moved on to a very interesting field called people analytics, where I was working with the HR business partners and other COEs, Center of Excellence in HR, to improve different experiences in the employee journey. And during that time, like So we were like collecting data from the employee touch points that Sheetal touched upon before, and trying to understand like where are the points where the engagement or the performance was suffering. And one of the important touch points that we had was the exit survey, wherein the employee tells frankly in a quantitative or qualitative way what was lacking in the organization, which could be improved. So I think this is something which was gold for a people analytics expert like me. I was able to understand like some of the reasons why people are leaving the company. For example, in our case, one of the reasons was lack of growth opportunities, and the second one was well-being initiatives. And we knew like these are the two things we have to work upon in order to retain the employees which are working with us now. And again, like you could break these reasons based on different divisions. So for example, in the engineering division, lack of growth opportunities was a major reason for the employee retention. And one of the initiatives we started, maybe a few years ago, was like internal transfers being more seamless across functions or across the teams. And I think this really paid off as we saw retention decreasing in the engineering division. And this is how I think every company should tackle these kind of issues, by listening to the employees and having the right tools in place to do so. So this is just an example, but your organization might be different than my organization, and you have to come up with your own set of hypotheses and data to tackle that.
While you were speaking about tools, Jatin, Vikram from SAIF is asking, how does an organization handle employee promotions and advancement opportunities, and how do these impact employee retention?
Right. So I think, yeah, like
you are into people analytics, right? So maybe,
sure.
Because I know that you have a list of tools that you've started to deploy considering the kind of organization you manage.
Right. So in people analytics, like there are different phases, right? So first of all, your processes should be cut clear. Then there should be systems over that. And then you should be able to use those, like the data from the systems, to get some insights. So I think in terms of like employee promotions, your evaluation system should be like very, solidified at the beginning. So you should first of all know like, so how you are evaluating your employees, what is the process of evaluating them, and then who gets a promotion, and what are the expectations at each grade level. So I think once these things are clear, then you're able to, for example, like use those systems and get the data to find out like who is getting promoted, in a shorter time, what should be a succession planning and things like that. So I think, yeah, like those processes should be, something which you should be, working on.
Perfect. Surabhi, considering your body of work, what has been your tried and tested, beliefs about employee retention?
I think when it comes to employee retention, one thing which Gen Z is looking at is purpose in their roles. So they're not just looking at the pay package, they're looking at what is their role adding to the larger goal of the organization. When it comes to retention of an employee, when they see that, when they see their role contributing to what the organization is doing, I think that clear path gives them a reason to be with the organization for a longer period of time. Second thing which I feel is now employees are looking at organizations which provide a sustainable growth, which are into ESG initiatives and not just concentrating on their business. Organizations which have diversity and inclusion as a part of their initiatives, employees are gravitate towards those organizations. The other thing which employees are looking for is, which I previously mentioned, the flexible work arrangements. Organizations which are invested in the well-being of the employees, who look at the physical well-being as well as the mental well-being, give them a flexible work option, give them work-life balance. Naturally, the employees want to go to and be with such organizations. And lastly, people do not leave jobs, they leave their managers. So the managers have to be holistic leaders. They have to listen, as Jatin said, they have to listen to their employees. They have to care about their employees. They have to take responsibility for the growth and development of their team. Once all of this is in place, I think retention is not such a big issue.
Rupee, while you are speaking, Aditi from PSAFE is asking, how does one-on-one sessions between employees and HRs, are they effective in the retainment of talent, especially with Gen Zs?
See, I think the best part about one-on-one session with an employee in HR is there are a lot of things which the employee may not be able to tell his or her manager, but they can open up to the HR. If they're facing any issue in the day-to-day working, you can talk to it about, hopefully, with your HR, depending on how the HR is. But the HR today is also a lot more agile, a lot more connected to the market environment. So hopefully they will be able to help you through that. Maybe the team is facing certain issue, or you are particularly facing certain issue with the manager, with your role. And that could be worked out. Either any changes could be made to the role, you could go in for a job rotation, you could be shown a path to where you will land up next, which could be really helpful.
Perfect. Thanks, Rupee. Sheetal, I think I will ask you a completely different question now, considering that we are in Q4. In fact, we are just 1 week shy of a brand new year. I'm sure the budgets are in for the next year in terms of retention, in terms of, recruitment and everything else. How do you go about the plan of how to develop all the benefits plans for the next day? So your benefits probably are, I don't know if you offer, a healthy snack in office at 4 p.m. It could range from, ergonomic chairs to transportation to office to health insurance. There are companies expanding health insurance further. We were just in the process of a lot of organizations letting go of their COVID policies in their health insurance policies. And now with what is happening in the last 48 hours, there's a possibility that we will now tell our clients again, because we might have to again start paying our employees for them to be able to get tested. And because OPD is not covered in the policy, we need to probably compensate them in some way to be able to get their test kits. So how do you go about planning an effective benefits plan for an entire year?
So you have touched the...
So you're the person I should probably start this question with.
Thanks, Soumya. You have touched the right note or right string. So what we did was, with budgets looking conservative for the next year, we thought how we would make best out of it. And budgets are conservative as of now because of the economic situations and for sustainability as well. So what we did was we rationalized the offerings. We saw where we could leverage the current situation and provide maximum benefit to employees. Starting with insurance policies, especially group medical claim policies, which forms the largest cash outflow of our benefits budget for around 15,000 employees. The claim ratios were down from last year because COVID had settled this year. So this year, when we renewed our medical insurance policies, because of the reduced claim ratios, we had considerable savings from the last year. So we could use some percentage of those savings to provide enhanced benefit to the employees and still passed some savings back to the organization. Then we saw the budgets for each of the benefits. And we had built in 10% inflation for each of the renewals for next year. And it also depends on how we renew, what the kind of negotiation partners we have during renewal, how strong is the procurement. And since the organization is scaling up, it provides a lot of economies of scales to the vendor partners as well. There are instances wherein we have been able to achieve a reduction in price from the existing vendors. So again, that brings in savings. Then currently we have various benefits which are scattered in various apps. For example, for telemedicine, we have one app. For mental wellness, we have another app. Then for a virtual fitness program, we have a third app. So we are also launching a global benefit program across US, Philippines, India, wherein there will be one wellness app and all other benefits or apps will be integrated into that. So that will provide one-stop shop for all the employees for that. And while we do that, we will also do a cost and benefit analysis of all our isolate offerings, whether it makes sense to continue with them in the next year if the same offering is there in this global app. So this strategy will make the ongoing year as a sustainable and beneficial year for us as an employer and for the employee as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Sheetal. Surabhi, I will come to you on this first, primarily because of the complexity of your organization itself. So I'm sure the spectrum of benefits that you offer, maybe in health insurance, it could remain the same, but the complexity of dealing with employees who are largely working from home or working from an office is different from handling the well-being of an employee who's one of the fleet on the street, or somebody who manages warehousing and operations. So how do you plan on handling a benefits policy for the entire spectrum of your employees? Because at the end of the day, they're all employees of your organization. I would also like to know that, how the considering your organization is doing quite well, even in these times, what are you looking like? Is there any enhancement of benefits in the coming year?
Yes, so logistics industry was operating all through the pandemic. In fact, we had our employees who were working 24/7 to bring the deliveries. So what we have to look at is not just the physical well-being, but also the safety of employees. So taking care of their health, well-being, and the fact that they're happy and engaged to make sure that this kind of increased workload is handled. We have decided not to cut back on the health benefits, but in fact increase the health benefits. Now we're looking at a holistic vendor who will give us a comprehensive health package. This package should include preventative health care, which is the gym memberships, the dietitians, etc., who can actually take care of health before something happens, and the consultative healthcare, which could be the telemedicine or the on-site consultations, doctors on call, or doctors coming into the office for eye checkups, dental checkups, or COVID vaccinations, flu vaccinations. And we are looking at specialized healthcare for our women population, the elderly population, pet care, if people have those. So we are looking at a holistic vendor who will give us all of these apart from the health insurance and the annual health checkups. So we will be investing a little bit more when it comes to the health and well-being of our employees to make sure that the increasing workload doesn't affect them, and they can continue being engaged and happy and look forward to their work.
Perfect. Thanks, Rupee. Jatin, I will of course want your points to further this conversation.
Sure. Like, I'll be very honest. We have just started our organization in India, but the way we think about the benefits in Japan, it's very interesting. So our benefits are structured so that it caters to the diversity of the employees who are working with us, and we have like employees from 51 different countries who are part of our Japan organization. So instead of saying that we will give you gym membership, like someone would say, I don't want to go to the gym, or instead of saying that we will give you free lunch, someone would say, oh, I get my own free lunch. We say that, you can be a part of some communities, whether it's related to, say, fitness, or whether it's related to playing badminton, whether it's related to going and checking out flowers in the evening, whether it's related to like having coffee together. And you can use like some budget in each of these communities. And I think this is something which all the employees enjoy a lot in the Japan organization. I myself, I'm a part of the squash community here. So I go like every fortnight and play squash in Japan. I'm also a part of like Japanese lesson community. So I can take like free Japanese lessons. So I think, yeah, this is something which I feel also like Indian organizations should think about. As the people in India also becoming more diverse. India is a diverse country itself. People have different choices. People have different likes. So that is something the organization should also think about.
Perfect. Jatin, thank you. In fact, this is very, very interesting. I think I have something to add to a lot of, conversations going forward. In fact, this is a fabulous, input on a personal note. Okay, so that brings me to probably the most important question in today's conversation, and I'll skew the entire conversation to only addressing HRs. Okay, because you three are HR professionals, and 96% of the attendees are HR professionals. So then, what is the greatest amount of skill sets that is required to actually have a successful HR career going forward? What is the, like, we are seeing that we did the poll earlier. We realized that most of the HR professionals on this conversation have between 5 to 10 years of experience. So what is actually the biggest skills that are required for them to actually adapt to a way forward? Because the generation coming after this is way, way different than the way things were done before. So I think in my 20-year career, I have already started calling it the pre-pandemic era and the post-pandemic era, because the world, the business, and even the people are different. So I think, Sheetal, I'll start with you.
Sure, Samya. So I think for HR should understand the business strategy for next year and focus on how the HR strategy would be aligned to the business strategy. No matter how many certifications or courses you enroll into, if you're not able to implement that learning in your organization, or you're not getting that opportunity because the business environment does not support, so then it's a loss-loss situation. So for example, if you see that the business strategy next year is to automate a part of the business. So accordingly, as an HR professional who may be in a talent acquisition domain, or in an HR business partner domain, or in a total rewards domain, or in a talent management domain, so that business strategy change will impact each of these domains. So for a hiring professional, he or she would think that, okay, if automation is required, what should be the next course of hiring? Should we grow people in-house, reskill them, or hire more people who are on tech side, something like software engineers who will do it in-house, right? Or should we outsource this function of hiring maybe getting into a tie with a partner like Mercer who will automate our tasks? As a total reward professional, it will be a different scenario altogether, wherein the total reward professional will redesign the task or redesign the work and realign the job families basis the skills. So accordingly, the HR professional should look into adding those skills which will help the HR professional as well as the business, is what I feel.
Perfect. Thanks, Sheetal.
Yeah.
Jatin, I will come to you.
Yep, I agree to Sheetal on that. To add to Sheetal's point, I think one skill definitely all HR should try to learn is like being more data driven. So understanding like how do you actually hear your employees through data, able to formulate like some programs, some strategies, and able to measure those effectively. And if it works, like try to, see like why it worked. If it does not work, like try to retrospect on these points. So that is one skill. And second skill, and it's very interesting skill, is like, having some idea of the Gen Z tools, like what kind of things they're using, what kind of behaviors they're forming. And I think this will help every HR who are like my generation in the future. So for example, like yesterday, I was hearing from one of my intern that like for hiring, why don't you use this tool called Snapchat? And I was like, what is that? And he's like, everyone like, who is in my university is using Snapchat or something. So I think like those kind of tools or, those kind of like behaviors, an HR should try to understand. And I think that would help them to understand the Gen Z better. So yeah,
Jatin,
these are the
this
two
is
things.
interesting in terms of your conversation about tools. I think about 3 webinars ago, we had, I think, the HR head of Browser Stack, and he mentioned that there is a concept called WhatsApp hiring now. And I
Oh, wow.
remember the question and answer session just exploded, because then every single HR person on the conversation was just asking follow-up questions regarding how do you go about it, what is the tool, and apparently it is a prompt, and I think they're far better at explaining it. What are the go-to tools? I know that, to handle workforce in 2 different continents, you are extremely reliant on a lot of tools. What are your favorite tools in terms of the HR spectrum at the moment? I'm not asking about
Right.
HRMS, but the tools that you're actually using for people analytics.
Sure, I'll share my like favorite tools.
I'm sure
So like,
people, whoever wants to ask follow-up questions regarding the tools or something, you can leave it in the Q&A.
right. So we are using like Culture Amp, like as a tool to get like to hear our employees. So we are using it across all the employee touch points, whether it's a candidate survey, whether it's like pulse surveys. If we are introducing any policy, we are using Culture Amp to understand how it's going or what are the reactions. We are using it for exit surveys. So Culture Amp is very important tool for us. Then we are using like a Workday for most of our internal HR operations, I would say. And for ATS, we're using Workable. And I think Workable is a decent ATS tool when it comes to analyzing the data and trying to improve the recruitment strategies. Besides that, like for learning, we are using LinkedIn Learning. And I think, yeah, like LinkedIn Learning has really improved the contents in the past 1 year, I would say. And that has been like really a hit among the members here. We are also using a L&D tool called Docebo. So that has been a great addition too. So yeah, like these are some of the tools to mention, but again, like we are using other automation tools and other communication tools as well. So
I
feel
think
free to ask any questions.
your answer goes to something very important that was discussed in one of our previous webinars, Jatin, where I like asking this question to most HRs, is, what should people be learning? Because, when we were younger, we learned everything at the same time, and we still had space in our brains and bodies to actually learn a new game or, a new subject at all times. And somehow when we start doing and working, I think the focus on learning just nosedives at one particular point. So learning and development is probably one of my favorite aspects. So I like asking this question. The reason it was specifically asked, and the reason I specifically asked you to call out a few tools, is one of the points that came up in one of our previous conversations was the reluctance of HR, because it is a people function. They don't understand technology can further enable it. One of the HR head who spoke about it told there's always this hesitancy. We work at the helm of tech companies. Technically, we are running a whole company full of engineers, but our own people, like the HR community that takes care of such a large pool, is hesitant about how technology can further enable them to manage this workforce itself. So so there is so much option at the moment to actually manage them better. You'll get further insights from what they require faster, in fact, by using technology a little bit, which is why it is a great input that you actually called out all the tools you are using.
Yes, and I think like as you mentioned, like about the learning part, and I think like one thing I would just want to add is like in this age the learning is more impulsive. So it's like if you need that, you'll learn something. So just before this panel discussion, I was learning like how to behave in a panel discussion or how to take a panel discussion, things like that. So I think like this is the new way forward. And
Yeah,
yeah.
there is a reason why micro learning is such a huge space at the moment. I
Yeah.
don't think 2 days go by without somebody who does micro learning reaching out to me to see if our teams can be trained in micro learning sessions, because their attention span is so small, and plus they all have a lot of work. I should just look at the calendar randomly of anybody to know that it's completely chock-a-block. Okay.
Right.
Okay, great. Surabhi, I will come to you on this front then. What
Yes,
is
I
the
completely concur with
for someone to actually have a long, thriving HR career?
So I concur with what Jatin said and what you said, Soumya. I believe that now, rather than being HR being just a people's function and the finance guy being the numbers guy, we all have to be the numbers guy going forward. We have to use the HR analytics tools to understand where the talent health is going and then contribute towards the business. We in our organization have a HR dashboard, which is designed on Power BI, and we track various matrices like the attrition cost, hiring cost, staff cost versus revenue, diversity ratios, the employee demographics, etc. So looking at all of these demographics, that helps us to decide where the organization is going and where we need to concentrate on. And given all these matrices, we can contribute towards the business strategy and move from being a more admin function to a business enabling function. So I think this is what HR should be doing going further. And HR has to be agile, right? As Jatin talked about Snapchat, we are hiring and we have learning in metaverse going forward. So things which were relevant 6 months ago are no longer relevant. So HR has to be agile. HR also has to be adaptable to the Gen Z tools and start using them going forward.
Great. I think it's time for me to actually let a few other people ask questions. I think the questions that we had for us, we have actually been able to manage time, and we've been able to close that in an hour. We'll now go to the questions that have been submitted by our attendees. If you have further questions, just request to all the participants, please leave your questions in the Q&A box. I think we will start. I think for the panelists, I will just ask her a question and any one of you can pick up that answer. And if anyone wants to add to it, please do feel free to add to it. More points. Okay. Shravya Narayanan is asking, there is again an increase in COVID cases. It is being paired with current layoffs and return to office. What measures should companies take in order to handle this new crisis? Any one of my panelists can take this question.
So I'll take this. From the organization point of view, of course, we'll have to take care of the hybrid working, which was initially being done. Make sure the employees which are coming in are tested. We have to have COVID vaccination camps. We will have to have testing facilities available. We will have to make sure that there are sanitizing stations and regular health checkups which are happening to prevent a widespread pandemic happening the second time. We also, in case the cases spread, we will have to look at, again, flexible work arrangements to make sure that the health and safety of the employees is maintained.
Perfect. Thanks, Rupee.
In our case, like we already have like a flexible, work style arrangement. So I think we can adapt very quickly. So that is one of the benefits for having like a a more flexible work style.
Jatin, then I will ask you this question. There is an anonymous attendee who has asked, what are the panelists' thoughts on work-life balance for employees? Is it being looked at differently by organizations post-pandemic?
I think definitely, like, pre-pandemic, like going to the office, working for 8 hours, in a similar work hours was kind of like a norm. But I think post-pandemic, things have really changed. And I think more organizations have, especially in the tech space, have gone like in a more flexible hybrid style of work mode. In Japan, like Mercury has gone, more extreme. We are just like allowing anyone to work from anywhere in Japan. They don't need to come to office anymore. In India, we are still in the in the phase of setting up, forming the teams. So we provide something called flexible hybrid, where the teams can decide like when they want to be in the office. Like especially when some new joiner is joining the team, or there's a new project which is being kicked off. During this time, the teams decide like we'll gather in the office and we'll be there as a team. But yeah, like I think work life has really changed in the past 3-4 years after the pandemic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jatin. Sheetal, I'll come to you because there is someone who's asked a very, very relevant question in which I think I would like your inputs. As there is an increased worry in the increase of wage costs in terms of talent and the recessionary impact in North America and Europe, do we see more job cuts in tech organizations?
So it's not about job cuts. Cutting jobs, I would say, would be the right strategy for any organization, unless there is an impact on the business per se. Especially from tech side, there's a lot of digitization that is going on. How the organization is managing that wage increase or inflation, that is important. For example, I know the wage costs are rising. Still in India, the average increment industry-wide, according to Mercer, is for next year, average increment industry-wide is somewhere around 9.3%. That is the projected one. Now, inflation may be even higher than that, especially when I talk about the effective increase after all taxation and all that stuff. So how the organization manages that? There are various ways to it. Providing one-time retention bonus to key players, or adding rather than increasing fixed cost, which will be there year on year on loading them on wage, organizations should look into temporary solutions which are different from the wage, like retention bonus or something like that, or on-spot bonus, more of rewards and recognition. That is.
Would Surabhi or Jatin want to contribute to this question?
I think, yes, we have to look at innovative strategies to retain the employees. Also look at building the talent within instead of buying, and because the hiring cost is always more than retaining the employee. So we will have to look at what will be the individual development plans for the people who are in the organization, so they can take up the next roles instead of hiring talent from outside. Hopefully, we should not be looking at too many job cuts. Of course, there will be job cuts when it comes to certain startups or certain technology talent, but we hope that we will be a little bit more immune to the global environment in India, and we will be able to retain people going forward.
Perfect.
There have to be reward strategies which are based not just on hefty packages or salary increases, but on various benefits which can be provided and various recognition in form of acknowledging the work which the employee has done and taking care of their well-being and actually caring for what they want to do in future in their career. I think all of that, those will help in retention and reduce costs for the organization.
And just to add to that, it also depends on what kind of industry your organization is operating in. For example, if you talk about the edtech industry, which had seen a lot of growth during COVID times, and after COVID, there had been a slump in the overall industry. Organizations were not profitable anymore. And there the job cuts happened and nothing could be done about it because the industry as well itself was in a declining trend. So that also is one of the factors.
Sorry, I was on mute. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Jatin, I think I'll specifically start the next question with you. Shikha is asking, what are the salient salient pointers for coming up with an effective performance management system strategy for a tech startup?
Right. I think, yeah, like honestly, I don't have any experience in, setting up a performance management strategy, but I'll just share like how, Mercury does that. And I think this is owned by our engineering office team. So we have an engineering office team within our organization, and they have introduced something called engineering ladder, where they have like, with each grade, like different expectations of what an engineer should be doing at. And this holds for both the ICs as well as like the engineering managers. And I think one very good thing which this organization does is like they set the expectations very well. So engineering managers discuss with their members, like what are their expectations at a given grade level, and what they need to do, in the next 6 months, in the next 1 year, to move up the ladder. And all these things are very well documented. And whenever we have like a 6 months evaluation period. So in 6 months, based on your OKRs and how you have like worked to achieve those OKRs, you will be evaluated by a group of managers during a calibration meeting, looking upon those expectations which are kind of very concrete. And then I think the decisions will be taken whether to move up the ladder or not.
Then I
So
will
think,
put the same question to the rest of the panelists, but with a follow-up question that another attendee has left us, but unfortunately hasn't left their names on the post. They're asking how long, you're talking about 6 months. So how long should an onboarding plan actually be? Because this HR says, I would say it should be for a month max, but I see companies having onboarding plans for 90 days. But the reporting managers tend not to follow the plan and get the newbies to get to work a lot faster than the 90-day onboarding plan that is originally laid out. So how do you actually work through that? Because your performance management plan is supposed to kick in at the right time horizons, right? So
right.
How do you go about that? I would
So
like all of your inputs for this question, because I think it is irrespective of departments, whether it's the business team or the tech team or just the operations team or any team for that matter. I'm sure this is a problem that will crop up often.
Right. I think like our onboarding team has a mission like within 30 days, within 1 month, the person should be should have started to perform well in the teams. So that is their goal. And this does not even does not only include like the the new member, but it has to do with their managers, their mentors, the other team members. They all have some role to play in the onboarding. And I think like everyone has like the set of tasks which they need to perform to onboard this member really well. And 30 days is our period. Like we don't go beyond that.
Sheetal, I would like your inputs.
Sorry, can you repeat that question? There was some network issue. I couldn't hear it.
I just asked, can we have your inputs regarding the same thing about what an effective, like for example, for a performance management strategy, it's important to especially manage performance. We're talking so much about the onboarding of candidates to actually in a period where we're working so hard to retain talent and all of that. Of course, we're making things better for them, but it also means that, the talent we have worked so hard to retain, we have to metricize their performance so that they are effective, a part of our workforce. So then there is this performance management system, especially in a system where companies onboard professionals, especially because of, deliverable impact, and, we all have goals and numbers to achieve. Some of the times, what is an effective onboarding timing into a person being assimilated into the organization, considering you handle rewards? And PMS directly falls under your department. So I think it's right that I ask you for further inputs.
Sure. There are various elements of an effective performance management strategy. The first one being goal setting, whether the goals have been correctly set and communicated to the employee. Second, whether the competencies are well defined and measurement matrices around those competencies are well defined and communicated to the employee. Third, whether the employee is the right job fit to those competencies. Sometimes there are hiring defects also that happens for XYZ reasons. So that is another one. Then within those competency levels, there are levels as foundation level, moderate level, or an advanced level. So a manager may be at an advanced level of a competency as compared to his subordinates. So whether that distinction is clear or not. In many organizations, in fact, in R1 as well, it happened earlier wherein there were roles or designations which existed, but people were performing the same work. So when we launched the new job architecture beginning this year, we had merged those roles because they were just levels to create steps towards promotions, but they were not required. So we made it easier for the employees. And all of these make up an effective performance management system. Then also how the performance conversations are happening with the employees. Are the managers trained enough to do that? If your organization is following a bell curve methodology or a normalization, rating normalization process, how is that communicated to the employee? Then another part of it is performance management is alternate career tracks. So a career progression need not be necessarily a vertical movement upwards. So out of a workforce of 15,000 employees, if you have, let's say, 700 to 800 or 1,200 promotions every year, how about the rest of the organizations? Do they have the opportunities to move laterally into career tracks, which can be an individual contributor role, which can be a managerial role? And when they are moving to those roles, are they properly trained or groomed enough to perform that role? So these all form the basic elements of a performance management system.
Thanks, Sheetal.
Yeah.
Surabhi, I will actually ask your inputs also on this, primarily because there's a HR professional who's actually left a follow-up question, and it's specific to you, telling, especially in the logistic field, how do you then handle retention and engagement for the fleet on the street staff?
When it comes to the last mile people, the fleet on the street, retention is always an issue because people are hopping from one organization to the other. While there is a certain amount of attrition we take as given, it will happen. There are certain things which we do to make sure that these employees stay with the organization. There are certain additional benefits which are given to this fleet of employees. There are, when it comes to Gati, which is a part of our organization, we give housing benefits to the fleet employees. We give them housing. There are certain allowances, TV, food, stay allowances, which are given to this fleet to make sure that they remain with the organization. There is a special benefit of Diwali bonus, Holi bonus, which is given to ensure that, because the salaries are lower, they remain with the organization for a longer period of time and do not look at changing the organization very soon. As for your previous question for the performance management system, I believe any performance management system has to be transparent, it has to be fair, and it has to be consistent. Something building on what Sheetal said, the goal setting process has to be very clear in the beginning of the year. Any employee, after the onboarding process is done, whether it's a month or 3 months, which also depends on which role the person is getting into. For a new joiner from the college, probably you would need someone in a month, or a technical training can be given in a month, and you want the person to start performing pretty quickly. Whereas someone in a senior management role might need to understand the entire organization structure, work with various teams till they actually become effective enough to contribute to the organization, which might take up to 3 months or the first 90 days, which they talk about. And once the onboarding is done, the performance management system, the first thing which should be very clear is the goals for the year. The employee should know where they're asked to contribute. After that, there should be frequent check-ins. It shouldn't be just an annual review process that after a year you come to know what you've done right and what you could have done better. It should be much more frequent. The feedback sessions should be frequent so that you know where you're going or where you need to be developing on. And the third thing, which is very important, is the manager should be trained how to handle these performance management conversations. The appraisal conversations are sensitive. They could make or break someone's career. So they should be very well trained to handle these conversations and handle the employee expectations and the career growth around them.
Perfect. Rupee, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. So then going to your point about people with lower packages, there is a participant who has left a question. Unfortunately, I cannot say their name because it says anonymous attendee. They ask for employees who are on a lower salary package, commute is a huge cost, which usually makes people shy away from full-time office jobs. They say, I know it is unorthodox, but should organizations start sponsoring their employees commute from home to office? I would like all of your inputs.
So for my organization, there are many organizations which provide commute to the office. They provide the office buses. There are office cabs which are provided, which does make the commute cost, pretty manageable. For the employees who are not provided these, probably a concession or a part of their package could be contributed towards the conveyance expense. There is a certain allowance which we give even for petrol for the employees. So that manages a part of your commute for sure.
Perfect. Sheetal, would you like to add?
So adding to what Surabhi had said, the organization, if the organization sponsors the commute, it will also have to see the overall cost, how much it is running in a month. It may run into crores. Talking about an organization of my organization's size. So there are various ways to it. You may retain that cost till a particular, you may sponsor that till a particular level wherein wages are low. And beyond that level, it's borne by the employee completely. Or there may be a co-payment within those levels as well, wherein you're sponsoring the cost. Still, if that does not look a feasible option, then making employees work from home has already been established, which saves a lot of commute costs. And if there are governance issues around that, then making only that part of population come to office and sponsor their commute cost completely or partially, only that part of population which is actually required to work from office. So there are alternate strategies, and I would not say that any strategy would fit any organization. It's about how the organization dynamics are operating, that a particular strategy would fit in.
Perfect. Thanks, Sheetal. I think I will come to a very interesting question that I think is largely a new age company benefit. I've not seen it in established large-scale companies. Vikram Khurana wants to know, do we think the unlimited leave policy is a hit or a miss as a part of employee benefits? Jatin, I will come to you first.
Right. I think I can give some perspective from Japan point of view as well. So honestly, I don't have like much experience in India at the moment, but in Japan, like we have to force people to take a leave. Like we really have to track like how many leaves are getting expired for this person through our dashboards, and we have to send some automated message on Slack or somewhere like, hey, like if you don't take the leave, it will get expired. And even then the people don't take those leaves. So I think, yeah, like honestly speaking, unlimited leave policy, I don't understand. Again, it's my opinion, but like I think the point over here is like, especially like in Japan, if there's no common day when people are taking leaves, people usually come for work. They don't take leaves very easily. So yeah, like unlimited leave policy won't work in a market like that. But honestly, I don't have much idea about India, so I can leave it to Surbhi and Sheetal.
I think this is a point where even I have something to contribute, because at Pastia we have an unlimited leave policy.
Oh, okay.
And that's for no reason unlimited leave policy. But it is managed in a completely different way, and there's a lot of personal accountability at the other end of the spectrum. I'll talk about it in the end. We are actually here to listen to the three of your inputs, so I'll probably give my input regarding this question in the end. I would like to hear from the rest of you.
So I think it boils down to how much you trust the employees, right? If your performance management is outcome based, you track the people's performances based on the outcomes and not on their day-to-day activities. It doesn't matter whether you have an unlimited leave policy or a limited leave policy. People don't just take leaves. You have to trust them that they will avail of this policy when they really need it. And which is what most of us do, right? You can, barring 2 to 5% of the population which might misuse the policy, I think most of the people will use it pretty diligently. Most of the population has their leaves lapsing at the end of the year, and most of us need to consciously take those leaves. So I think unlimited leave policy is very beneficial for someone who might really need those leaves due to medical emergency or due to their caregiving responsibilities. So I think it all boils down to how much the organization trusts its employees. And I think it's a great benefit to have, to be very honest.
Yeah, sorry, just to add, Surbhi, like, so we at Mercury Japan have like unlimited sick leave policy. So in case you have like some serious illness, like which requires you to stay at home, so you are free to take those. So yeah, like that really makes sense for us.
Yeah, which is wonderful, right? Because especially if someone does have an issue for which they need a leave, they don't have this constant pressure on their mind that, yes, my leaves are lapsing and I need to get back to work. They can actually take their time, become well, and then get back to work.
Agreed.
Ultimately helps the person being happy and engaged and be longer with the organization and become a more contributing member.
Perfect. Sheetal, do you have anything to add regarding the unlimited leave policy?
So I concur with Surbhi and Jatin. It's a very sensitive topic. How it is managed and governed.
Yes.
That is the key.
So we have guardrails around it. There's a poll running parallelly, and already 60% of the people are saying yay to the unlimited leave policy poll. So the way it is governed, especially in Pascare, so we understand how, technically as per HR, you have 6 days of paid leave, sick leave, and 6 days of casual leave, right? That is actually allowed by the government of India. So we have an unlimited leave policy where we do not differentiate. We have a leave policy where you don't even have to give a I come from a school of thought where people originally were, it's almost like you had to call your manager and make up a bahana as to why you're not waking up in the morning. I think I have received calls from every gender with a coughing tone telling that I'm not well. Sometimes because they are a little foolish or maybe they're young. I've seen their status which says that, they were partying the previous night waiting for Argentina to win. But next day morning, they are not able to wake up because the match got over at 3 o'clock in the morning. And they've not been able to wake up at 9 o'clock. But the idea is, why, it's a system of fear. And also we're like forcing them to, come up with a bahana. You don't have to give a reason as long as leaves are available. As long as you just want to lie down and recover on a Monday morning, perfectly okay. You're well within your right. We don't want to encourage a system where somebody is forced to use that over, imaginative brain of theirs and come up with a bahana on a Monday morning or any reason of that sort. Secondary reason why we don't have a policy where we don't have to give anybody a reason as to why we're on leave is because none of us have any business to interfere in someone else's personal life. We do not know what people are dealing with. They could be dealing with a lawyer, they could be dealing with a parent, they could be dealing with a doctor. As an organization, we cannot infringe on someone's personal boundaries. And just because they're employed with us, we don't even have the right to actually question them about where are you going to be and what are you going to be doing. Like that's what a parent does with a child and not an employer with their employee. It's a two-way financial contract at the end of the day. We, of course, ask everybody to exercise things judiciously. If they're going to be off for more than one day, of course, everyone is supposed to log in, have their HRMS system, tell their leaves or whatever, and up the chain. We use technology and it lets everybody know if you're available, not available, primarily because we have employees across 5 cities in the country and close to 200 of them in India. So, so that people know that cross-functional team effort does not get jeopardized because someone is on leave. But yeah, we encourage transparency. And if someone is going on leave for more than 2 days, it goes through the same leave process. It has to be informed to a lot of people, but we will not ask for any reasons. And nobody's going to withhold, telling that, you will go on leave only if I approve it. We are not in 1917 there. Because we've heard of those things, right? Even on the last day, they're like, my manager still hasn't approved my leave. I don't know if I can come home. So none of those things. Okay. I think I will end this entire conversation with everybody on the most interesting question. Kritika, thank you so much for submitting this. Kritika wants to know, please suggest if there is any new ideas or innovative strategy efforts that are coming up in HR in recent times that you have been privy to. I think Jatin listed out a whole scale of tools that I'm sure half the people were not aware of. I definitely wasn't aware of a single one. So what do you foresee? What are the new innovations coming up in your field?
Yeah, go for it, Sheetal. Like I saw you unmuted yourself.
So there are many I've seen in the companies I've worked with and in the industry as well. One of them is daily pulse checking with the employees through AI-enabled tools. And it collates data at the back end and throws some useful insights.
How does it work, Sheetal? Would you like to elaborate on that? It's very interesting.
Yeah, so it just provides a pop-up as to how are you doing today, and there are various options called as mood terminologies. So these are just one words. You click, okay, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling awful, and blah blah blah. So you just click on it, then it asks further questions, and these are all submitted anonymously at the back end. And then it gives a useful input that, okay, 20% of your organization is feeling awful today, or feeling disengaged today. And then if that is seen as a trend, then HR design some interventions and implement it. So that's how it goes. It's a project in itself. So this is one of the innovative strategies I've seen. Then the second one I've talked about was moving to a skill-based organization, which is the need of the hour. So wherever you have mentioned the job descriptions that, okay, these are the things which are required, we should also have skill maps for each of those job roles as to what are the skills required. And that will help us mapping what skills a person is bringing to us on the table. For example, if a job role has 10 skills required and an employee has, let's say, 7 skills mapped to out of those 10, so there is a gap of 3 skills. So as and when we know we have to move this employee to another role for his advancement of his career or for business reasons, we know that these 3 skills are to be worked upon. To be precise, on that, most of the organizations which are like BPOs and KPOs with routine transactional kind of jobs, especially the backend data handling, wherein they might be processing a loan or submitting some insurance transactions, the candidates hired are of average communication skills or lower than the average communication skills, because they're not required to interact with the stakeholders a lot. They just do data transactions. So if we know that if we have to move them to a different role, the communication skill is the skill that we need to work upon. So for them, the rating of a communication skill will be on a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 is the highest, maybe 3. And when we know that we have to move them to voice-based roles, which requires frequent interactions, we know that we have to provide them a 2 months or 3 months of VANSI training. So that skill-based mapping will help in talent management as well, or talent movement as well, and employee engagement, which the employers are moving to or have started moving to now.
Perfect. Surabhi, I would request your inputs.
Sure. So I think HR is moving towards a lot of innovation from a typical admin function. We have moved towards a function which is majorly automated now. We have metaverse now when it comes to hiring and onboarding experiences, and even learning and development. There are, instead of in-class trainings which used to happen, now there are trainings which are happening online, which are happening in metaverse. So HR is going to change a lot in the coming years. One of the most interesting trends which I just recently read about in rewards was actually publishing of the compensation packages. So rewards typically is very hidden as a function, right? The organizations don't encourage the employees to discuss each other's packages. But what this leads to is a lot of disparity. So there are organizations, especially in Japan, which are going ahead and publishing the salaries. This has really helped reduce the gender pay gap, especially. All the companies where this kind of publishing has happened, that has really helped that, where men and women might be paid differently for the similar kind of roles. The gender pay disparity has closed and the pay gaps are much lesser. So I think transparency in the entire reward system is something which I look forward to as a reward professional. So these are few of the innovative trends which, and of course, the 4-day work week. We started with a 6-day working when we started the career, and we moved to 5-day, which was such a big relief, having a 2-day weekend breather. And now we're moving towards the 4-day work week, which is excellent. I feel that if you can give employees that time to for their well-being, I think they will be much more productive in the 4 days which they are with the organization. So fingers crossed on that one.
Fantastic. Jatin, would you like to add, please?
Yeah, I think like looking at the innovations in HR field in the past few years, I think I'm like really very excited in the coming years as well. And one trend which has like recently started, I don't know if you have heard about it. It's called GPL. Sorry if I'm pronouncing it right. Chat GPT. I'm sorry. Like I'm sure like some of you might have heard about this, but this is like a bot by OpenAI, which is able to automate a lot of tasks, and we can see it as something which can answer employee questions in the organization, or able to create like job descriptions which are unbiased, which does not have anything discriminatory for anyone. It can summarize like one-on-one meetings, can summarize even like this meeting. So I think all these kind of things such kind of an AI bot can do, and that is like really phenomenal. And I'm really like looking forward. Sorry, Soumya, you were muted.
Sorry, what is this brilliant tool?
It's called Chat GPT.
Okay.
Yeah, I think recently it has been like trending on my LinkedIn, and I was very curious, like, what is this about? And I tried to just like, put my job description, and it actually, made it much more concise, and,
Lovely.
in a much beautiful language and stuff.
How
And it's a
lovely.
free tool, so you can definitely go and try. And I think there are many use cases than, just creating great job descriptions.
Brilliant. I think there was a futurist who used to call, the technology eats itself at a rapid pace, and the time shortens by half. So if something, apparently during the industrial age, if it took 1,000 years from the time a wheel was created to the motor car becoming then planes became 50 years. And then, it shortens its time horizon by half every time technology eats itself. So tomorrow there might be a situation where technology makes itself redundant in 24 hours. So we're actually reaching that particular point. And you may know, I don't know if you know this, Google AI has now, it can create Van Gogh-like art. She can speak, she can communicate. She created the most beautiful Lakshmi painting possible, and it is scary because I would have paid money for that artwork. So, it's people are like, now, how do we, we've created a monster. That's what somebody said. So, yeah, like if you're actually telling that it could actually now theorize this entire 1.5 hour productive conversation, then I would definitely want to test it today itself.
Yep.
If you can't beat it, then join it. We might as well have it on our side.
Yeah.
Okay. On that note, I am going to say thank you. It's been my absolute pleasure and privilege to have had my last webinar for the year with the three of you. I'm very grateful for your inputs. As I close with every conversation, I would tell this. A mentor of mine used to constantly say that the most generous thing you can be as a, when you reach a certain number of years of experience is, you can be generous with your knowledge, because it not only prevents, a lot of people from falling into the same pit you have earlier, it also propels good conversation, and in a holistic environment allows people to see a different way of doing something that they have been doing by themselves. All the people who were attending this were from different organizations, so they have definitely, I have figured out 50 new things today. And I think I speak with HRs for a living, and I'm very grateful. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Soumya.
Thank you, Soumya. And thank you, everyone. Wish everyone a great new year ahead and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to all of you too.
Yeah, wishing everyone happy holidays.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.